Hey, Mr. Bomarito. Today I'm headed to the Ankeny Airport in Iowa. As you can see, the weather's pretty bleak right now, so it's going to be the perfect time to practice some of the instrument flight rules that I've learned from my course that I'm taking. Right now I'm headed to the airport to hop in our instrument flight rules certified plane and get going. So we're at the plane. We have it pre-flighted, and now that we've done all our pre-flighting, we're ready to hop in and get our IFR clearance to Kilo India Kilo Victor Airport in Ankeny, Iowa. So here's the tail end of me starting the plane. I'd already run the fuel pump and primed the engine, so I just had to turn the throttle 5 to the right and then turn the key, get her going. Got to check the oil pressure, make sure it's in the green right after it starts, and there's the thumbs up. Everything's good. So as you can see from this picture, we have our course set, and we were headed to Ankeny at that point. This next picture is showing, I guess, the tower which we're talking to, and that's where you get your clearance. And then 123.7, that number is St. Louis approach, and that's who you talk to immediately after. That kind of guides you around the sky, especially when you're flying with instruments. So yeah. So after we took off, we were pretty much immediately in the soup. And we started talking to St. Louis approach / departure. They got us kind of vectored onto course in the clouds and everything, because that's kind of a lot to handle. So they pretty much, vectoring is when they tell you to fly a certain heading, and eventually they'll get you on your heading course, and they also keep you away from all the other airplanes, which is super nice. Next, we started looking at the weather at the airport we wanted to land at, even though we were over an hour away, like 200-something miles. It's always good to look at that because you want to be ahead of your airplane. You don't want to be just looking at the weather the last 30 minutes of the flight when you're trying to get the plane all configured and ready to land. So we noticed that the temperature and dew point spread, which is how far those two numbers are apart, were right next to each other. They were both 15 degrees. So that pretty much means that you know that it's going to be overcast and kind of bad conditions at the airport. So this is us trying to pick out our approach. They had 4. They have an instrument landing system on 3.6, and then the rest are just RNAVs, which instrument landing systems use a localizer frequency and radios to communicate with the airplane. It's super duper precise, which is nice. And then the RNAV is just GPS. And we were kind of looking at the winds because you always want to land with the wind. But the wind was kind of variable. It was switching all over the place. So we just kind of briefed ourselves on all the approaches. So in this clip, I was trying to talk, but the airplane just completely overpowers me. They say don't text and drive, but I'm flying and videoing in this clip with the autopilot off. Completely in the clouds. You just got to pay attention to your instruments. I'm kind of talking about that. I'm talking about how the autopilot, we're at 6,000, climbing to 8,000 in the clouds. So I'm kind of talking about what the autopilot does with that. The most important thing is just rely on the instruments, and especially when you're in a climb, you need to make sure you're not getting too slow. So that's what I'm doing there. So this is just a little picture of the view outside. We got on top of the clouds. My grandpa always used to say that it's always a sunny day if you climb high enough. The next picture is just a picture of kind of the weather that we were dealing with and trying to navigate around. So you always have to be cognizant of that, especially when you're flying in rain. Wanted to show what autopilot's like. I have it programmed to stop at 8,000, so there should be a tone 200 feet. I don't know if you could hear that, but there's a little tone. It's blinking. So this is another image of the weather. The clouds kind of got a little worse, and the wind completely switched directions. Before it was like a 190, and now it's a 360. But I honestly we kind of preferred that because it was the more precise approach. So that meant that we got to use the ILS system, which is more precise than the GPS or the RNAV. So this is an approach plate for the ILS localizer on runway 36. Like I said, the wind kind of switched directions on us completely. So we switched from runway 18 to runway 36. So this approach plate, we talked with air traffic control. They knew we were doing this. They got us vectored onto Zag 2 at 3,000, and then we just followed the glide slope down to Robin at 2,500, and then Pari at 1,760, kept following the glide slope on down to our decision height, which I think originally was 1,060 or something like that, but there's a NOTAM, which noticed to all airmen that there was a crane at the end of the runway, so that minimum, or that decision height got raised a little bit. But it's fine. The clouds weren't that low when we got there. It warmed up a little bit, so the spread went a little further apart. What's funny is we actually had to do a missed approach, which if you look at the approach plate, it shows you how to do that. And the reason we had to do our missed approach is because I accidentally programmed the ILS wrong, and it wasn't giving us our glide slope the first time around. In the missed approach, it says climb to 2,000, then climbing right turn to 4,000, and then you can get back with air traffic control, and they can get you back to try it again, which we had to do, and the second time it went great. So after I got that sorted out, you can see I programmed it right, the VLOC on 111.1. Here's a picture of air traffic control revectoring us to reshoot the approach. And now you can see that localizer 1 in that green, and then the glide slope to the right of that. So it's finally right. So here's a clip of changing radios. That's just, you do that all the time in flight to get talking to the right air traffic controllers. And then here's a little clip of our flight on the way there. We got up to 9,000, and we're just chilling out there, and then descended on down. Made it on the ground in Iowa. Had to go missed one time just because we were a little high and messed up the programming. Still learning, so had to go missed, but got it the second time. And then we canceled IFR, which you have to do, otherwise you get in big trouble. So made sure to do that. I flew up to Iowa to get some running in, so here's a clip of me doing that. Before you know it, we got some food and went back to the airport. So we're at Ankeny, going back to St. Louis right now. Had a good time there. As you can see outside, the spread, it's gotten a little hotter, so clouds got higher and there's less of them. So less full IFR conditions and more like simulated, I guess. So yeah, filed a flight plan back to St. Louis, and yeah, we're good. I talked about simulated instrument conditions. You would use foggles like these. They pretty much block out everything on the outside, and you can only see the instruments like in this picture here. It had warmed up into a super nice day in Iowa, and then out of nowhere, the visibility got crazy bad. So we took a look outside, and there was a fire burning. So, so it shows you that instrument flying isn't always just clouds. Sometimes there's a fire. So that's just a little picture of, I guess, the start of the fire. And it just made conditions really bad. So here's a little clip of me messing with the autopilot, showing you how it works. You move that knob on the right, and it will change your altitude that you will go to. Even if you're not using autopilot, it's smart to use that, because air traffic control will slowly clear you up to an altitude. So that trip we started at 4,000, then they cleared us to 8,000, then 10,000, and then finally to our cruising height, which was 13,000. We just wanted to stay up high because the winds were nice up there, and we wanted that nice tailwind. One thing you have to worry about in IFR flight is icing, especially when you get higher. It may be a warm day on the ground, but it gets to 0 degrees when you're up at 13,000 feet, so we were keeping an eye on that, even though there weren't any clouds. In the clouds, there's always precip, so you just got to be watching out for that. So here's a clip of me using the autopilot. You can see I turn it on nav mode. I turn the autopilot on, and then you hit that VS button on the far right, and then mess with that knob. Vertical speed is how much you're descending or ascending a minute. Pretty much as soon as we got to 13,000, we already had to go back down because the tailwind was so strong. So you see that VS button, it's going up by 200 feet, it's going down by 200 feet. I programmed it about a 200 foot a minute descent, and that got us crazy fast, 100, 200 feet a minute. That got us crazy fast. As you can see in this picture, up to 185 knots, that's over 200 miles per hour, and in a small plane, that's really good. here's us just checking the weather at our home airport in downtown St. Louis. And then we're getting our approach ready. With the winds, we're going to shoot an approach on another ILS approach on the 30 left, which is a big long runway, and the ILS is super precise, and the winds were good for that. So you see the localizer frequency 109.1, so I'm going to go ahead and program that in there. The 111.1 was from the last airport. So I'm changing those knobs. I kind of suck at it. I was supposed to do the big knob. I already messed it up once that day, but you can see I'm slowly getting there. There we go. I finally figured it out. 109.1. Come on, buddy. There we go. So I program that in there, and then you go over to this. There's the V-Log mode. When it's green, that's what it's supposed to look like. So since it's a ILS, it's a pretty similar approach plate to the last one. I'm just showing you how to program the V-Log again. But it's very similar, so I'm not going to go into depth about it. So for this approach, air traffic control will get you onto FOSCU at 2,200. Stay at the same altitude, follow 0777, 2,200, and then follow the glide slope down to the runway. So here's all the little things you have to program when you load an approach. There's FOSCU, there's JUPAS, there's runway 12 right, and then that's all for missed approach, but hopefully we don't need that. So as you can see, I'm in the clouds on this. We're going to the airport in St. Louis. My eyes are glued to that 6-pack of instruments, except for when I got to pose for the picture, thumbs up, you know how it is. Got onto the ground safely, shot a good approach, had to go take a nap on the couch.